So I want to read a Facebook post that I just made, which pretty much accurately subscribes what I'm going to talk about. And it says that I have a little bit of a hard time understanding how creating and multiplying definitions, labels, and schemas, and then further rearranging and recategorizing them has much to do with manifesting any real transformation in the world, internally or externally. And this thread is quite relevant within the political, social, and even religious and spiritual spheres right now, because the whole social justice warrior thing is popular, I guess rightfully so. And there's so many isms and things popping up. And this is a trend now, but I'm also going to talk about a much larger trend which affects kind of our modern paradigm and culture at large, and then shows up in our own life and is real in a very practical, tangible way. Because it seems like what we're actually after is a tangible and real feeling sense of connection, of comfort, of ease, of OK-ness, and understanding, which the above approach is by its own nature incapable of creating or exhibiting. Meaning, we're engaged in this hyper-mental cerebral process of isms and labels and schemas and rearranging this and rearranging that. But really what we actually want to experience is some feeling sensation in our body. That's really what we're after. We want to feel seen or heard, or we want to feel some connection. We want to feel comfort. We want to feel just okay in who we are. That's what people are trying to get to. That's what they want, but they don't know that. So that gets to my next thing, because by nature, I explicitly mean that the above approach is highly detached, hyper-analytical, and inherently defensive, because it's caused by a deep-rooted sense of fear and guilt. The underlying fear-guilt dynamic is the actual fuel for the engine of the excessive pattern recognition, which is basically just creating more problems and more solutions to solve problems that didn't actually exist before, but it created the more problems out of its own nature. So it has to basically create solutions to solve problems that it created, but then that creates more problems. So it's this whole nasty loop of kind of anxiety, and it just, there's a feeling that just isn't good about it. It doesn't relax the body. It's generally creates defensive a defensiveness in the space. It kind of puts people on guard, makes people feel a bit uncomfortable and on ugh, which is opposite of what we actually want to create, which is a comfort, ease, a sense of OK-ness. So to me, it makes a lot more sense to actually get in touch with being honest with ourselves, meaning who we are, what we want, and what the words we mean actually mean, or the words we use actually mean to us. And that this process, it sounds simple, but actually it requires compassion, empathy, understanding, and acceptance, and a willingness to see yourself as you are, to see things as they actually are, and then treat those things with understanding, compassion, acceptance, empathy, understanding. So what that is doing in a very literal, real, practical, pragmatic, clear, concise way is actually developing the internal qualities that we want to experience, that we want to manifest and create more of in the world. So what I'm saying is, if we don't know that that's actually what we mean or what we want, then it's going to be really a bit hazy. But I'm assuming that generally, if we're getting into spirituality or religion or self-help or personal development or therapy or healing in some fashion, what we want is, we want to feel comfortable, we want to have ease, we want to feel okay in just who we are, and we want those to just be kind of general, natural things that we don't have to do and work a lot for. It's just wake up in the morning, I feel okay. I'm not blissed out and tripping over the moon, but I'm not depressed, but I feel okay. I feel good, a comfortable ease. And that's good. That's a good, neutral, realistic, practical starting place that is natural to a human being. But if we don't actually know that, then we don't actually do anything inside to cultivate those qualities, it seems like a losing formula. Meaning if we're just stuck in isms and judging and categorizing, putting people in boxes and labels and schemas, and then what qualities are that developing? Just more of that. But then because it's on a purely mental level and the nature of our experience, it just creates more of that. So it doesn't match in any really way, shape, or form. Obviously, cognition in language is important. It's useful. Labels, definitions, useful, important, because that's what I'm saying is we need to actually get clear on things and use them so they have importance. But really, I think in short, a large scale of Western culture has taken wrong turns philosophically and spends a tremendous amount of time and energy asking the wrong questions. Questions that don't really develop the qualities that we want. They don't create the conditions that we actually want. They don't help us actually know who we are or feel okay in who we are and actually engage in that process. So subsequently, they just soak up lots of time and energy and just produce more anxiety and more obligation and pressure and basically complexity, which is not that great. So subsequently, what usually shows up as religion, spirituality, healing, therapy, in a very practical sense, is largely people rearranging their pre-existing mental delusions under labels, definitions, and schemas, all the while missing the actual underlying dynamic of the situation. So you take that behavior and then you combine it with a hazy sense of perhaps emotional catharsis or some dopamine response or some reaction on the nervous system, and then you understand the actual functional dynamics of how it works. Meaning, the act of believing that giving yourself a new label or subscribing to a new ism represents any real transformation is actually only revealing an extremely limited and disrespectful view of what you think you are as a person and what you think a person actually is and what you think life actually is. For example, modern people tend to view it as like high-minded and advanced and modern and intelligent to really view things through the lens of psychology. But what happens is that actually just creates another deep level of ignorance, because then you can only view things through the lens of psychology. So everything is just some psychological thing and everyone becomes like a pop psychologist. Oh, bro, you've got a complex. Bro, you're complex. You're projecting. You're doing this. It's like, hold on. So then basically this becomes their new religion. For example, how all of this stuff might show up in a tangible example is someone might look at a diverse array of spiritual traditions across many cultures, many historical periods, many very complex variables of change and a lot of things. They might look at all of that and say, well, I fundamentally believe that they're all using different words to try and talk about the same thing. Or there's all paths lead up the mountain. Or yeah, all the spiritual traditions from all the cultures and all times, they're just talking about, like, basically what they're saying is they're just talking about these psychological experiences and psychological states and psychological process that we have now because we're better and we're smarter and we're more advanced and we're more capable. We now have all the real answers because we have psychology. But in actuality, what that's saying is what that's really saying is I'm actually really small-minded and I can't see out of my own bias that I'm practically completely unaware of that I even have. So yeah, that's me being polite. That's my polite way of saying it. My impolite way of saying you're a fucking idiot and you get on my fucking nerves. Why do I say that? Because I've spent the majority of my life studying a bunch of these traditions in very deep, real, profound ways, and I can tell you, all paths do not lead up the mountain. There are tons of mountains and tons of paths, and these cultures are using things in very different ways. And there's so much variation. It's not even like a cultural thing. It's within each line of a lineage or each lineage or a geographical thing. The level of complexity and ways in which, yes, people are using similar words, but meaning completely different things is quite large. So when you just look at this level of complexity and say, oh, well, I think they're all fundamentally saying the same thing, And then you do it as if you are like the people I'm talking about in my writing. It's like they're like a progressive, liberal, open-minded, like social justice warrior here to change the world. But when they say comments like that, that is the exact same mindset, behavior, dynamic that would also say, well, all black people are criminals, or all women are stupid because they have smaller brains. All men want to do is talk about cars and touch their penis. Like all Middle Eastern people are terrorists. Like that's the same level of thinking. That's the same depth of understanding. That's the same process. That's the same mindset, the same approach, the same mechanics. But it's paired with, oh, but now I've rearranged what I already thought and believed under a new label, a new ism, a new schema, a new definition. And then I got some dopamine response from it, or I got some nervous system response from it, so I think it's real, so it's right. But it's like, no. Probably not. But then it becomes tricky because everyone around you is operating under the similar mechanics of delusion. So they're like, oh, pat on the back. You've taken this pre-existing schema and like label of things, and now you've made it this thing and this thing, and then you've rearranged it into a complex set of another 128 variables, which can be 256 variables. And oh my God, let's give you a degree. Let's give you a reward. You've written 100 books about how your pinky finger fits perfectly in your nose, but also in your ear. You've written books on that. Wow. Good job. Wow. Amazing. You are, you're like Carl Jung practically. You're like Jesus, meaning you've been conditioned with the mechanics of being a savior, being a messiah, being a martyr. So we're going to press those buttons in your psyche and trigger those nervous system dopamine responses. And then you're like, whoa, I'm getting paid. I'm getting social acclaim. I'm getting validation from my peers. I mean, case closed. Like, let's just keep it going, people. So yeah, in a very practical sense, something about that's a bit, I don't know. So yeah, hopefully I've clearly illustrated a problem and then offered some solution. So to loop back to that solution, being more honest with ourselves, actually getting in touch with who we are and what we want, and really getting clear on the words that we use and what those actually mean for us. So an example, we're in a conversation with someone, they say a word. Okay, that word might set off a cascade of feelings. It might set off a story. Okay, so we look at those and say, oh, well, that seems kind of, oh, that's some meaning and some like conditioning, Pavlovian response there. Pavlov, like, I'm gonna ring the bell and you're gonna salivate. So we're operating under similar mechanics. People say words and we're like, boom, 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 salivating, oh, emotionally reacting, oh, nervous system response, blah, blah, blah. But then we're out like, oh, I'm conscious. I'm an enlightened individual. I have psychotherapy. It's like, really? I don't know. Because there's something's not like lining up really there. I don't know. Anyways, this video's long enough. I've made my points. And I'm not harping a ton on the solution because I have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of other videos clearly walking through ways that you can help yourself, ways you can improve various aspects and qualities of your life, diet, exercise, movement, meditation, breathing, supplements, herbs, relationships, self-reflection, like journaling exercise, like so much. It's all on my channel. So that's why I'm not going to spend any more time talking about it. Anyways, hopefully this video has been helpful, and I'll talk to you soon.